So, good afternoon to each and every one of you guys, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to our podcast. Wherever you folks are joining us from, we're going to call it the Circle Back Week, folks, because we are circling back to our discussion with Dr. David Hines. He was on our program 2 nights ago. Beatrice Helby, we see you there. We're going to circle back to you, Beatrice. We're going to circle back to Dr. Hines. He was on our program 2 nights ago. Orwin Don Cook, we circle into your comments right now. All valid viewers, good afternoon to you. Out front pass is here as well. We're going to circle back to those comments from Dr. Hines because I think it puts into context. It puts into context what has been said by WPA brother Chukuma Ogunseye. It's going to put into context what he said in Dr. Hines' own words. Dr. Hines' own words. We're going to put into context some of those comments. But first, folks, we want to touch on a couple of things happening. A couple of things trending we think you folks ought to know about. Magnell Barrow, we circle into your comments right now. Magnell says it's breezy with a lot of sunshine. Where she is. Well, we envy you, Magnell. We envy you. It's a little hot where we are. But great to have you, Tessa and Magnell, Tessa Lenisman, Magnell Barrow, Susan Jacobs, Joy Hopkinson. Really good to see you as well. How are you folks doing, folks? I got an aroma brewing, lifting in my nostrils. Lunch is ready. And if lunch is ready, y'all know the worms tingling. Give me a quick second. Lord. Gotta turn up the AC. Beatrice, we see you there, and Beverly Glen. So we're gonna be circling back to those comments that we had from Dr. Hines a couple of nights ago. We're gonna be circling back to those comments. But first, folks, before we head to those comments from Dr. Hines, on this issue of Chukuma Ogunseye, brother from the WPA, let's turn our attention to a couple of things trending where we are. Tropical Cyclone Freddy, who's in Malawi? We got any folks from Malawi on the live? Folks, be thankful for where you are. You got a little temperature, you got a little heat, you got a little cold. Malawi got it rough. A tropical cyclone touchdown in Malawi, devastating everything. Yolanda Thomas, devastating the beautiful island of Malawi. Cyclone Freddy. Well, you know, with a name like Freddy, what's to happen? You know, with a name like Freddy, what's up? Cyclone Freddy touched down there, and it's Pocatory, they tell us, in Malawi. Believe it or not, since Saturday night, they tell us that Cyclone Freddy, Mad Cyclone Freddy, has killed, wait for it, 219 persons since Saturday. Devastating the beautiful country and island of Malawi. 219 persons. Yep. Pray for the people of Malawi. Pray for the people of Malawi. Please and thank you. Do that first. Pray for the good people of Malawi. You have not ever been there to pray for them, please. And Elizabeth, let's pray for the folks of Malawi. And I'm gonna be a good person. You see, when your parents give you a middle name like Elizabeth, top notch. Yolanda and Jean Williams, Orwin Don. Let's pray for the people of Malawi. 219 dead since Sunday, they tell us. thanks to the tropical cyclone. Wow. Thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to the folks there of Malawi. And this is Southern Africa we're talking about, right? And this devastation is between Malawi and Mozambique. Between those two countries, yeah, devastation. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, continue to go out to the folks there in Malawi and Mozambique. Our thoughts and prayers. Look what else we're following. I like this headline coming out of Jamaica. This second story here. Opposition leader scoffs. Opposition leader scoffs. At the government's economic management there in Jamaica. The opposition leader scoffs. Orindon Cook. Orindon was the menu to I'm like, pass on the river later. Facebook user. Good day, everyone watching. Good day back to you. Marlon Cameron, he scoffs at it. Jamaican budget period too, and they got a drought they're dealing with as well. And so we saw both Mark Golding scoffing, criticizing the government in its handling of the economy. In his comments in the budget debate, so you got Barbados in the budget cycle right now, Jamaica, and then we have Belize next week. In his budget contribution in the House of Representatives, Gordon said the achievements being touted by the Andrew Holness administration did not constitute real forward movements. That's what he said. It does not constitute real forward movement. He said the country's rate of recovery from COVID-19 or from the COVID-19 fallout was slower than several other countries within the region. You see why the man is scoffing? He ain't coughing, he's scoffing. He coughing with an S in front. He said the rate of recovery is slow. There's no real forward movements with the Holness administration. He contends that Jamaica is heading in the wrong direction, and as time has come for a change in governance and leadership. That's according to Mark Golding. It is a time for a change in governance and leadership. That's coming out of Jamaica, and we're picking up that information out of Radio Jamaica News. Radio Jamaica News. He's scoffing at the economic management of the government. Opposition leader of Jamaica, Mark Golding, remember that name? Folks, locally in Fremont Street, you know, they find Aunt Yulene in a house in Fremont Street here in Georgetown, the national capital city, where we're broadcasting from live. They found the remains of a woman in a house in Fremont Street. Yep. Aunt Yulene, she's known as. You know, this is the sad thing when folks live alone. You know, this is the sad part of that. And we saw this recently, somewhere else recently. You know, folks who live alone, you know, they transition and there's nobody there. And I think they're telling us, let me make sure I get a notation right, because we are big on valid, credible information. They're telling us that, yeah, the body has been identified as a woman known in the community as Aunt Yulene, and they found the body in a state of decomposition, which tells us that she passed some time ago. And investigations have commenced into the circumstances surrounding the demise of Aunt Yulene. Our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to her friends, family, and loved ones. Death has a certain impact on all of us, expecting it or not. You know, they say everybody wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die to get there. And what are you expecting the demise of someone they might have been ailing due to ill health? When it finally comes, it still hurts. So thoughts and prayers go out to Aunt Yulene, family, friends, loved ones of Aunt Yulene. Our thoughts and prayers. Picking up some comments coming out of Ghana News Source, who had the leader of the opposition in Ghana, Norton, on the line. And one of the articles that came out of News Source, another good place for valid, credible information, circled around that of Takuma Ogunseye of the WPA, the Working People's Alliance. That's the Rodney Party. Walter Rodney, tremendous intellect, political force at one time in our country. There's a party that he founded, the Working People's Alliance. And they were at a public meeting they tell us, in Buxton. And some comments attributed to member Takuma Ogunseye made national headlines, and we saw letters of condemnation from several quarters. Several quarters we saw. And Mr. Robert C. Norton, the leader of the opposition, leader of the People's National Congress Reform, according to News Source, says that while the comments were unfortunate, you see, the frustrations that the Ogunseye was expression cannot be ignored. And if I'm to quote a paragraph or two of News Source, it says here that opposition leader Aubrey Norton has broken his silence over the controversial statements made by Working People's Alliance executive member Takuma Ogunseye at a Buxton public meeting last Thursday. Mr. Norton, who also spoke at the meeting, said while the words uttered by WPA official were badly chosen, quote unquote, badly chosen, he understands the frustrations of the longtime politician with the current state of affairs in Guyana. You can't run away from that. As we say in the vernacular, don't get tied up. You can't run away from that. And I've noticed all who have come out in selective condemnation, as I see one pundit and commentator put it, all those who have come out in selective condemnation, they didn't touch on that. They didn't touch on that. They argued, as Mr. Norton say, with the words that were badly chosen. They argue with the words that were badly chosen. But the gravamen of his arguments, the salient points of his arguments, didn't touch on that. Sandra Facey, didn't touch on that. Eileen Griffith Norton Innes, Donna Joseph, Naomi Joker, didn't touch on that. The growing disparities that exist among different categories of Guyanese, didn't touch on that. We ain't getting no condemnation out of the Private Sector Commission, out of CIOG on that. Skites. And so Mr. Norton is right. Badly chosen, unfortunate, the words were, but the frustration, you can't ignore them. We don't fly about in private aircraft and be jet setting. You see, we get PFF2 on the ground every day. Who knows PFF2 know? Grounding with the people. And we ourselves have been marginalized. I have gone since July of last year without any salary because of the jagabats and trench crappos. I didn't see the condemnation for that. Pastor Hardy Rajkumar says selective outrage. We're in the trenches. We know how the people are hurting because we are the people and we are hurting as well. So don't come wrong with funny. Don't get tied up. You cannot ignore the frustrations. So they're paying up 40,000 part-time. You see when them buy the things, you gotta ask the details. They say 50,000 jobs, then says 50,000 part-time. Now they can say Photoshop, they had in part-time, somebody Photoshop it out. And you can't even pay the people the full 40,000. Has anybody ever got 40,000 a month? They're finding every conceivable reason why they take out a 2-day, a 10,000 here, a 15,000 so. Why is it? Look who had in the contracts. They're sticking couple differently looking people. Sticking couple differently looking people. To get that effect. But look who dominates. His contract, is who got the land, you name it. You see, some of us can't talk because understandably, you're getting a bread, you got a job with them, you're getting a salary, you can't talk. But it don't rise me. And it's not their money rise to y'all neither. So don't get tied up. Don't let me get tied up. So I understand and endorse what Mr. Norton said. Unfortunate, badly chosen. But Bridgewell cannot argue with the core sentiments expressed. Makila Bridgewell, you can't argue with that. So don't come wrong with funny. Because you know we fight you. Don't come wrong with funny. And you don't allow the jacobats to get weird nonsense in the comments. Light them up. Light them up. I see Annette Cummins agreeing with Edward. What did Edward say? I might have missed that. What did Edward say? John C. Paul says, Brother Tokuma Gonse spoke the truth. Edward says we need to stop being apologetic. If the truth is, let them wear it. All the nonsense you see the PDP doing, they apologize for anything? They apologize for anything? But I say again, the coalition is held to a different standard. To a different standard than the Jagabatic. PPP is held to a different standard. We are fighting physically. It's a political fight. The coalition is held to a different standard. You see? And that's the trouble that we got. That's the trouble that we got. As we told you folks, we had Mr. Hines in our program 2 nights ago, and we asked him to respond to what is happening, the furor and manufactured rage in some instances. And put into context, if anything, what Takuma Ogunseye was trying to say. And this was 2 nights ago in the ring. That's our evening program. That's the evening program. And this is what, folks, this is what Dr. David Hines, executive member of the Working People's Alliance, told us.
Dr. Hines, Brother Ogunseye at a recent public meeting made certain statements that there have been a furore over in the hours and now days after that. What are your thoughts concerning what was said? Maybe put it into context.
Yes. First, I would like to say that the furore is not over simply Brother Takuma's statement. It is over the WPA's intervention. And let me explain what I mean by that.
Talk to us.
After careful study of the developments in the last 3 years, the WPA made a studied decision to take to the streets with public meetings. And we wanted to do a couple of things in those public meetings. We wanted to signal to the government that its behavior over the last 3 years of assaulting the opposition and its supporters economically and politically, psychologically, and otherwise is unbecoming and should be challenged in a serious way with a serious political statement. We felt that we needed to let the PPP know that we are going to go directly to the opposition communities and to tell them that in the spirit of self-activity and self-liberation, it is the communities themselves that will have put a stop to what the PPP is doing. So we wanted to shift the focus away from the leaderist politics and to embrace the Rodneyite position of self-activity for self-liberation, to tell people that you have to, in your own communities and your own human spaces, put an end to this runaway train by the people. So we wanted to make that clear. And we wanted to say to the PPP that this belief that because there are no big eruptions in the community and no big demonstrations, that you can go into opposition communities and do as you feel. And that, no, we want to, in a serious way, put an end to that. And so therefore, we started by announcing a campaign of civil disobedience and non-cooperation. We felt that in the circumstances, while we await elections and all those things that will come along the way, that we need to put our people in a state where they are able to resist in a way that will not expose them to the spitefulness and the dangers of the people. And so therefore, we announce civil disobedience and non-cooperation. It's an old tactic, old political tactic. It was used by Dr. King in the civil rights revolution. It was used by Mahatma Gandhi in India. It was used in Guyana by the PPP after the 1973 elections. It was used by the WPA in 1979. And so we are not introducing anything new. We feel that we have to say something to people to lift them and to get them to realize that ultimately it's not leaders that stop oppression, it's people. And in the process of doing so, we wanted to change the narratives as they relate to the armed forces. I think it has become commonplace in the opposition circles to condemn the police and the armed forces for doing the biddings of the PPP. And I think we are correct, because the PPP has been using the armed forces for political purposes. We have seen that time and time again. And so we wanted to alter that narrative to say they are rogue policemen and women, they are rogue people in the army, but the majority of people in the armed forces are ordinary brothers and sisters, the majority of whom come out of the African Guyanese community, which has been bearing the brunt of government attack. And so police action, from the Henry Boys incident on the west coast of Demerara, to the police action in supervising the demolition of people's property at Linden, Moko Arcadia, Georgetown, Success before that. We wanted to signal to those police men and women that they have to separate themselves from the rogue elements in the army, and that they are our brothers and sisters in the army and the police. And Brother Takuma was tasked with articulating that aspect of our message. And basically, he was saying that the police and army must not turn their guns against people in the community fighting for bread, for justice, and for liberty. Because civil disobedience and non-resistance means that we are in resistance mode, and that legal and lawful resistance must be allowed in Guyana, and that the PPP is depending on the armed forces to prevent citizens from engaging in illegal resistance and protest. And we wanted to say to our brothers and sisters in uniform, you are there to protect the constitutional rights of people, not to join the government of the day in attacking those rights of the people. And so therefore, we wanted to say to them, do not turn your guns on the people of Guyana. Do not turn the guns on your sisters and your mothers and your brothers. And we feel that if we are allowed to carry out our peaceful and lawful protests against this government, and that the government does not have the promise of the police to shoot down protesters in the streets, we feel that we will be able to bring this government to its senses. That if they don't have to rely on the army and police to shoot down protesters on the streets, that we will bring them to an halt. We will bring an halt. We will bring a stop to what they've been doing. So it is in that context that Brother Takuma says that if the police and army were to do the right thing, that is, do not turn their guns on the people, our struggles against the PPP will be over in short order. So we are not talking here about some violent policing. We are asking the police and the army to fight for us. No. If police and army fight for you, that's a military coup. We are not calling for a military coup. And if the police and army fight for your rights, then tomorrow they can come and say, give me back the rights, I fight for you. All we're asking of our brothers and sisters in uniform is, do not turn your guns on us when we fight for our rights and our liberties in Guyana. That was Takuma Ogunso's message, and WPA supports it. And those who want to interpret the message differently, we say more power to you, but that is not going to stop us from saying that the people in uniform are our brothers and our sisters. They have a constitutional right not to turn their guns on the citizens of this country, and then they have a cultural and moral right not to turn your guns, brother.
Apologies there, Dr. Hines, for the interference. Largely, you believe that what Brother Ogunseye said was misinterpreted.
That's right. And let me explain why we think it was deliberately misinterpreted. This
Go right
government has
ahead.
been trying. This government has been trying to beat up on opposition supporters, beat up on African Guyanese, and to get us to be quiet, to go along with the beating up. And they've been fighting the Constitution and telling us that, look, we're going to settle all of this at election. Let us have an election, and we're going to do it democratically, and so on and so forth. And they wanted to get the opposition tied up in this thing about election being the way you solve problems in Guyana, while they are taking advantage of people. WPA rejects that view. We are saying that elections are important. We want elections. We want democratic elections. We want elections where people are not bullied and forced to not to support or associate with opposition parties. Because that is what the PPP has been trying to do, to scare people away from opposition parties and opposition protests and opposition resistance, and to tell people that, look, we are going to settle this thing at election. We are saying that you cannot be bulldozing people's homes and tell them about elections. You cannot be bulldozing people's businesses in front of the hospital and then tell them they're going to solve it at elections. You cannot be having extrajudicial killings whereby members and elements associated with the police force and in the police force are killing our young men. You cannot be unfairly distributing oil resources and then tell us about election. In effect, what you are telling us, look for crossover votes, try to win an election, but in order to get the crossover votes, you cannot talk about your hurt. You cannot talk about your sense of victimhood, your feelings of victimhood. So you're saying to opposition supporters and African Guyanese, take your blows, take your blows. But what you should do is try to win some crossover votes to see if you're going to win the election. But if you don't stop complaining, you're not going to get crossover votes. WPA rejects that. We say we want both. We want crossover vote, but we want justice for people of African descent and other supporters. And we're not waiting on an election for justice. We cannot wait on an election for justice for Quindon Bacchus and Orrin Boston and Peter Headley. We cannot wait on an election and crossover votes to come to get justice for those people's homes who have been bulldozed in Linden and more businesses in Georgetown. We cannot wait for crossover votes in order to deal with the problem of the way in which the resources are not equitably distributed. And so we are saying our struggle has to be on two fronts. On one front, we have to struggle for free and fair elections with a clean voters list, with biometrics, and with people not feeling fearful to associate with the opposition. We want elections because we want to vote the PPP out of office. And so we in the WPA support elections. But we also say simultaneously, as we struggle for elections, we have to struggle to ensure the dignity of half of the electorate. We have to struggle to ensure equitability of distribution as far as resources are concerned for half of the electorate. We have to defend half of the electorate against their homes being demolished. And so therefore, for us, it's not one or the other, is both, and we have to do them simultaneously. The government, the PPP, do not want us to expose them. No, they don't want that, because that is going to have a bearing on the election. So they want us to take blows and say nothing and wait at the election to get some crossover vote. And so what the WPA has done in 4 meetings is to change the political equation. That is why from the head of state to the head of the state armed forces, the private sector, and unfortunately, some of our brothers and sisters in the opposition, what they are doing is that they are giving comfort to the PPP, but both don't gonna fall because the equation has now changed. The PPP can go into black communities. That's their business and that's their right. But from today, they must know that when they go in there, they're not going in there to engage slaves. They're going in there to engage human beings with dignity and with history, most of whom are not their friends and do not support them. And so from today, because of the WPA's intervention, where we have alerted our people that they have to stop taking iPads, that when the PPP goes into our community, they go there and they have to treat our people now with dignity, because at least one opposition party has made it clear that it is not going to be business as usual. We are not talking here about violence. We do not have the capacity for violence. The capacity for violence lies with the people, right, with the state and the government and the vigilantes of the PPP. We do not have the capacity for violence. What we do have the capacity to do is to warn the agents of violence that if you come into our community and want to shoot us down, we are going to resist it. We are going to resist it.
Dr. Hines, you've had some commentators, and whether in the press or on social media, who have said that the PPP's condemnation is very selective. And part of your statement issued by the party on the 11th of March, just yesterday, recently rather, pushed back against what the AG had put out on the very issue we're discussing. And part of that statement reads, the AG belongs to a party and government that have waged political and economic war against the African Guyanese community since coming to power in 2020. Mr. Nandalal's declaration that that charge cannot be proven demonstrates how tone deaf and racially insensitive the PPP is.
Yes, and that is an excerpt from the WPA statement. Yes, look, Mr. Nandalal and the PPP are very quick. If they don't disagree with you, they tell you you are violating a law and we will lock you up. And it's Brother Rickford, or you, Brother Duncan, or the young men and women from Golden Grove, or the PNC activists in Lethem. They are very quick to incite law enforcement against people who stand up for justice.
Robin Simon?
Miss Robin Simon from Golden Grove. And they're coming up with fake charges. But the Attorney General and other PPP leaders are inciting, politicizing the police to bring these political charges against opponents of the PPP. They're trying to do the same thing here with Takuma Ogunseye. And so therefore, when Nandlal begins to talk about the law, he himself does not obey the law. He does not obey the law. As Attorney General, he cannot and ought not to be directing the armed forces to become politically involved. And so when the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, Mr. Best, says that the army and the armed forces are apolitical, he's a little wrong there. Only people can be apolitical. You know, an institution can be apolitical. The institution is a political institution. The armed forces are an arm of the state, the coercive arm of the state. They are political. What they should not be is partisan. What they should not be is partial. And they should not be partial to the government or the opposition. And so Mr. Best ought to be pointing his fingers not just at opposition people for inciting racial division. He ought to be pointing his fingers to every one of us, including the PPP. Because, as he said, the army and police are impartial. And impartiality means you must not speak for one side. And that statement resembles a PPP statement. He ought to retract it and to say, I am speaking to all Guyanese organizations, including the government, that they ought not to engage in racial incitement and to make a value judgment about statements made by a member of an opposition party. He has crossed the line. That is not the job of the head of the army, to determine who is racial or who's not racial. He's not a sociologist. He's a police. He's a member of the armed forces. He's leading the armed forces. He will be concerned about defending the territorial integrity of this country. He should be concerned that if there is civil disorder and the army has to get into it, then the army has to do so in an impartial way. And so we want to call on Brother Best to say that nobody is asking the army and police to fight for them. We don't want you all to fight for us. We want to fight and defend the Constitution of this country. It gives us the right to protest. It gives us the right to resistance, and that you must not level your guns against us. And you must point your fingers, not just in one direction, but to all directions. And that is what we want you to say unequivocally, Mr. S., that you will not point your guns at African Guyanese or no Guyanese for that matter. Regardless of our political affiliation, we want a clear statement from you that you will not level your guns against Guyanese going about their constitutional business. And insofar as you put out a statement, it did not do that. It did not do that. You're not apolitical. You're a political institution. By law, by constitution, you are political. You're not apolitical, but you are impartial, and you are supposed to be impartial. And that statement was not an impartial statement because it was pointing in one direction, and we take the word seriously. And so therefore, you must make it very clear to half of this population that voted for the opposition. All of them are African Guyanese. Some are. The majority are. And you, Mr. Best, come from that community. So you are first a citizen. All the policemen and army people, they are first citizens before they become soldiers. They weren't born soldiers. And as a citizen of this country, as a member of the African Guyanese community, you have a human right not to level your guns at your sisters and brothers. So as an individual, you have a human right. As a member of the army, you have a constitutional right to protect and defend all of us.
I think that's what the boys call spitting facts. Spitting facts. I think that's what they call it. You're spitting facts. The truth hurts, you know. The truth hurts. And folks, we Guyanese at home and abroad, we don't have to agree. We can agree to disagree and disagree agreeably. And that is why we say we ain't talking about violence to the person. We're going to fight politically. We're going to contend with ideas. That's what we're talking about. We're going to fight. It's a political fight and struggle. But we know some of you are so shallow, you can't even grasp that. You can't internalize that. You come talking a bunch of nonsense on the string, on the live. You ain't got nothing proper to contribute. Jagabats. You know? You see, you can disagree with your opponent. You ain't got to be crass. You hope somebody lose the vice like Chatman. That's how you are wicked, stinking, dirty. But when you're digging hole for people, you better dig for yourself. You better dig for yourself. You want to dig hole for people? Watch and see what happened to you, Vice, now. I trust you're happy. God don't like ugly. God don't like ugly. So we want to thank Dr. Hines for spitting facts. That's what they call it, spitting facts. Listen, internalize. They do not listen to understand. They listen to respond. That's a bad way they have. That's a nasty attitude Irfan got. You notice he asked a question. Irfan, we point this out Congress time. He wait for the answer. He jumping in. Do not listen to respond. Listen to understand. Let me put myself in this person's shoe. Let me see if I would have acted the same way, what have you. That's the trouble we got. That's the trouble we got. But I didn't see some of you when our sister Tabitha Saraba Halley was assaulted in the National Assembly. I didn't see some of you when Minister Dildo made his debut. I didn't see some of you. I hear the condemnation. You're wicked, you stink, and you're dirty. There it is. We said it. Wicked, stink, and dirty. And Johnny Abrams, Deborah Cox. So don't come wrong with funny, like you're no angel. And I see Parmanan Shivnath saying how WP is a dead party, but you're still here, following dead people. Listening to that announcement. You're still here on the live. You're not over the PvP. You're not on the live party live. You're over here listening to that announcement. You're on the PvP live. You're over the side. But you know who dead. You better go and drink your blue pill. Should not, you better go and drink your blue pill and rest yourself. Drink your blue pill and rest yourself. You know you got your comorbidities. You better social distance and wear a mask. You know you're all and gone through with your comorbidities. You better behave yourself. You know you don't reason in your car today. Yeah, they're gonna find you like you know, unfortunately, the lady in Fremont Street, you better behave yourself and live good with people. Live good with people. And Charlie Abrams, good to have you and Chin Singh and Tommy Gibbs. Good to have the Jagabats here too. You know, Karen Muhammad, good to see you. And Rena Williams, good to have you. Andrew Griffith, he know that he drinking blue pill every day. You know, you better turn to Jesus. Resurrection power. You know who dead now. You know who dead. All right. Folks, that's going to do it for us today. That's going to do it for us today. Sherlyn Juice Tendre, good to have you. Naomi Drucker, good to see you. David Amsterdam. Naomi said the like action is true. It is true. They got a whole host of boring programs. That is why they're not over there. A whole host of boring programs. Two people as they're watching Susan Rodriguez, whatever she program name. Right? Another three is they're watching who's the other one got a program now? Three is they're watching he. And then you get bored nest, feeling every day. Mental health is real. I want you to know that. You better take care of yourselves. Better take care of yourself. It's the action over here. That's what attracts them. It's the action. With Sue, we even talk about Sue a little bit. Y'all see, we going quite left wing, man. We ain't coming for troll out y'all programs. Left wing, we carry man. You come, you listen, you this, you that, so forth and such. And enjoy the little edification. Some of them, right? Some of them didn't hear so much facts in a long time. That's why they come to the place with valid and credible information always there. You see? guys, look, don't let me watch it down with program. Thanks for joining us, each and every one of you. It's been a privilege being here with you. Yet another podcast. Good folks, yet another podcast. We want to encourage you to Shivnat, you come around here plenty. Oh, help us to keep going so you can keep coming to man. Shivnat and all the other folks. I talking specifically about them with the differing views, with the crazy views, the radicals from the other side. Y'all come around here so steady for eat every day. Oh, left something the man. Oh, shucks. I know y'all at home boring watching the wall. We here providing valid, credible information. You know, this is how we keep moving forward, folks. Shivnat, we got Cash App, we got Zelle, we got PayPal, right? MoneyGram and Western Union. If you Brooks, we understand. Chefs, if you Brooks. Lacho, if you have Brooks. We understand. Is the economy, sir. We understand. Chef, we understand. Right? Thanks for coming. See you again this evening on the other live. Right? You see, we providing employment out for people. All these children getting a nice payout to Freedom House. We understand that. Yeah, be thankful, the man, that we give you our work. Shucks. That being said, folks, partner with us so we can keep moving on. Pace and power, guys. That's going to do it for our podcast today. Good folks, that is going to do it for us. And listen, thanks for joining us, each and every one of you. Have a fantastic afternoon and stay safe, folks, guys. Stay safe. That's going to do it for us. Over and out.